I know. This is probably the worst I've ever looked on this channel so far, okay? Okay. Just putting that out of the way first. I'm sorry I look so unapproachable right now. I went in the pool today and I look crazy. I look crazy. And ignore my face, okay? Happy Fanfic Friday, even though by the time you're watching this, it is probably not Friday. I'm so bad at life. I'm so bad at scheduling. I'm sorry. And this is indeed a continuation of my last Fanfic Friday video, because I might as well do them all in order, because last time I started reading a HTTYD Fanfic that had 8 stories to it. It was called Growing Up Haddock, the Growing Up Haddock series, and I did the first book, and it was very interesting, and the books get more intense as it goes, because again, at this point I have read all the fanfics, so I'm going to be discussing them with you right now. So in case you guys want to watch that entire video, the link will be in the description box below, but if you just want like a quick summary of what happened, because like just what you need to know for this story is that it is indeed a Hickstrid story about when they get married, they're married, and then they have a kid. Well, they have 2 kids. They have 2 twins, a boy and a girl. The boy's name is Finn, and the girl's name is Adriana. And so they're together, they're whatever. And then at the very end, if you guys don't remember, at the very end of the final chapter, it kind of hints a big part of what the entirety of the second book is about. Because basically they show like it's at their naming ceremony, and this old creepy lady like comes up and like takes Adriana from Astrid's arms, and then like we see that Stoic is very pissed about this, and they kind of shoos her away, but we learn nothing about her like at all in the first book. But like in this book, it's basically all about her. Like this entire thing is all about her, so exciting. And the rest of the franchise, well, the rest of the book series is actually quite interesting, because we get to see the OC characters, which are the Hickstrid kids. And as I mentioned before in the first video as well, this book series started in 2013, or this fanfic series, whatever, started in 2013, so this was before like the second movie came out and before Race to the Edge comes out. So the only things that are canon are the first Hygiene Dragon and the Cartoon Network show Riders and Defenders of Berk. Those are the only things that are canon. So Heather is in the story, Dagger is also in the story, but Dagger is still a villain, and he is not related to Heather in any way. And obviously this is before like we see their canon kids, so these are like OC kids obviously. So Zephyr and Nothink, they don't exist in this universe. Obviously their kids are named Finn and Adriana, and they are indeed twins. And I think that's all you really need to know before I get into this book. So if you guys are curious, you guys want to hear a little discussion, a little book club action, I guess, then stay tuned. So, and also too, I'm not going to be making a lot of edits to this video similar to the last one, because it's just supposed to be a little discussion, me just chatting with you guys, and it's just supposed to be just pretty casual, kind of like a podcast, me just talking and you guys listening, if you guys choose to listen. So, I can't find my mouse, this is kind of embarrassing. So yes, the name of this book is called Little Miracles. I read this book a long time ago, like a really long time ago, but then I decided to obviously reread it for the sake of this video, so let's begin. So yes, this story takes place like 2 or 3 years ago after the last book, so now the twins, Adriana and Finn, are around 2 and 3 years old, and the first chapter basically just shows Hiccup like bonding with his kids in a really cute way. like he's kind of like roughhousing them, and we finally get to see a feel of how Hiccup is as a dad, because we never get to see that in the first book, because they don't get born until like the last chapter pretty much, so we don't really get to see much about it. So we get to see it in this one, and it actually is pretty cute. And it was also shown that Adriana, his daughter obviously, is definitely a daddy's girl, like people had predicted she would be. Because as I mentioned in the first book as well, Hiccup is like, he's the one who really wanted a girl. He was so adamant about wanting a girl, and that's like all he really wanted. And so he got his girl, and yes, she is definitely a daddy's boy. And as people predicted as well, Finn is definitely a mama's boy, because because Astrid definitely wanted a boy, so it kind of reversed, but it did work out in the end. And Finn also happens to have a really great relationship with Stoic, because he's very much more like, even though he's only like 2 and 3 years old in this book, he's very tough for a toddler, like a literal toddler. He's pretty tough. He also has red hair. Like, I also forgot to mention the descriptions of the kids in case you're curious. Yeah, so apparently Adriana is very small, and she has blonde hair similar to Astrid's, and she's very tiny for her age. She's very girly. I mean, she's a toddler, so I guess she wears whatever they put her in. But she also likes flowers. She wears a flower in her hair a lot of the time. And Finn is very much like, not even like Hiccup, like Finn is definitely more like Stoic. He's strong for his age. He's like buff even for a toddler, I guess. It's weird. I can't picture that. And he also has like striking red hair like his father. So not really like Hiccup's hair, more of like Stoic's hair, if you guys remember what that looks like. So yeah, basically they're pretty much like chilling and stuff. And then Hiccup also noticed that Stoic only has a good relationship with Finn and not so much with Adriana, but he thinks it's very important for, Adriana to bond with her grandfather. So he decided on, I think once a week, they say that he bonds with Finn. Like they kind of have like a grandpop's grandson day, I guess, or something. And then Hiccup was like, you know what, today I'm gonna make you bond with Adriana. And Stoic like didn't even know what to say. Like he was like, really? Like he was not looking that into that. He did not look like he was really on board with that idea, but it was happening. It was happening. So yeah, they just basically dropped Adriana off with Stoic so they could kind of have like a little bonding moment. And they kind of show them talking. Nothing really happens with it. We kind of see Stoic getting more comfortable babysitting a little girl, I guess. So that's something to definitely see. So the next chapter is actually kind of funny because Finn eats like some like sugar berries or something, and yes, bro gets an insane sugar rush. And this scene's also pretty funny and pretty wholesome, I'm not gonna lie, because we see like Hickstrid they're freaking stressing over trying to control this boy. Like he's running around the place, he's going crazy, he's smashing into everything, and then the whole entire time for probably like hours they're just trying to like heal him and make sure he doesn't hurt himself or anyone else. So yeah, that's pretty not good. So yeah, they're basically chasing a freaking sugar-filled toddler around. That's interesting. So later that night, in case you're curious, Finn wasn't sleeping like he was supposed to, and then Hiccup got kind of like pissed at this and basically being like, Finn, if you don't go to sleep, I'm gonna put you over my knee and spank you. And no, I'm not exaggerating. That's like an actual quote from the book. That's really what he says. and what's his face? Finn is like kind of shooketh. He's like, no, I don't want to get spanked, because apparently he says that Hiccup is like the chill parent and Astrid's like the spanker, which isn't really that much of a surprise. That's kind of what I expect in canon verse too. So he wasn't really surprised. So he was surprised seeing Hiccup threaten spanking. And he also mentioned that Hiccup spanked him only twice in his life. He spanked him once when he like kicked Astrid in the shin during a tantrum, and when he also threw a rock at Adriana. So kind of well deserved, I guess. I don't know what your opinions are about spanking. I probably wouldn't spank, but like in the Viking times, I guess it's normalized. So yeah. So yeah, Finn was very scared at being spanked, so he ran back upstairs and went to sleep. So at the very end of the chapter, there was like a cute scene. It's kind of random, but it is cute, I'm not gonna lie, where Hiccup sees Finn and then noticed that there was like something in his mouth. And then Hiccup is like, kid, open your damn mouth. I'm sorry, this is so random, but it made me laugh. He's like, open your damn mouth. And so he opens his mouth, and then a frog jumps out. Like a freaking frog jumps out of his freaking mouth. Yes, Finn is that kid. He is definitely that nature kid. You guys know what I'm talking about. So this is why I ended up liking the story, because as I mentioned, these kids are so freaking cute, and I really love them. So in case you remember, as I mentioned before, the last story, the couples that are also canon in this book is Roughnut and Fishlegs. Yes, they are canon, and Heather and Snothout are canon. Yeah. So Heather and Snothout are actually married. I don't know when that happened. That was very quick, because in the last book he was dating Roughnut. So now he's like married to Heather, and Heather is also expecting her first child. I almost missed that the first time reading that. I didn't even know that, but hey, good for them. So in chapter 3, they show Hickshred kind of getting a little steamy, if you know what I mean. Just another warning, I mentioned this in the last video too, but there is no smut in this book. I'm sorry if you're looking for smut, but there are indeed a lot of steamy scenes. Like there is a lot of like heated makeout sessions, but there's no like anatomy talk, if you know what I mean. Like there's no like actual deep smut. There's more just like, yeah, we had a really steamy makeout session, and like we caressed every part of our body, but then we went into the door and then we shut the door, and then the rest is history. That's kind of what happens, I guess. So yeah. So as I mentioned, yeah, on season 3 they get a little bit steamy, but then the kids like run in on them when they're in the middle of making out, so like kind of awkward. But they run in, and they, in a very innocent baby girl voice, Adriana's like, Heather's tummy hurts. And suddenly Hickshred realized that means that Heather is in labor. So yeah, they kind of show the kid's point of view at this point, which is kind of cool. Like this whole story this whole like series of stories is in third person point of view, but like they kind of almost showed like the kid's point of view in a second, because they see like, you know, their parents kind of rushing around doing all this stuff, and then they're kind of just like, what's going on? What does this mean? And they really don't understand it. So we kind of see like that, because obviously they don't know how babies are born, so they're kind of like, what's going on? So yeah, they're kind of a little bit shook. So I missed. Okay, so it's also said that some of the gang were predicting if Heather and Snothout's baby was going to be a boy or a girl, and everyone thought it was going to be a boy except for Hiccup. He was the one who thought it was going to be a girl. So he's very confident in this. He's very confident they are indeed having a girl. So once Heather's baby is born, Hiccup is right. It was indeed a girl. And for some reason they were all really like shooketh about this. Like they were all like, oh my god, Hiccup, you're amazing. How did you know? And I'm like, it's a 50-50 shot. like I don't know. Luck. Like, bro shouldn't go off and buy a lottery ticket or anything. And those are really cute scenes, though. Adriana is so cute. That's the thing. In the beginning of the books, she is so cute. You guys, she is so cute. Because during this whole thing, when, you know, Heather gave birth and she's holding her little baby in her arms, everyone's, like, looking at this. They're all looking at everyone. And then Snothout starts to, like, cry. And always, if you know Snothout, he's very, like, tough, or he pretends to be tough. He's like, I don't cry, what are you talking about? So of course he's kind of like this here. He's like, I don't cry, I don't freaking cry. Whoa. But then he ends up crying anyway, typical. And then also he cries from seeing his daughter for the first time. But then Adriana crawls into Snothout's lap and then tells him, please don't cry, while wiping his tears, which makes him cry more. That is so cute. That is so cute. Oh my god, I'm gonna cry just reliving it. or I'm gonna choke. Okay, so during this like whole ordeal, apparently Finn goes missing under Stoic's watch because I guess he's a terrible grandfather. I'm kidding. So they go out scouting because Finn goes missing, and then they see that Finn fell down like a frozen cliffside, and he was like unconscious on like a frozen ice block. Like, ow. And so he's also out of reach. So Hiccup then like tied a rope around his waist to save his son, and like the second he saves his son, the cliff breaks. So that was a very close call. And again, I recommend you guys to read that scene in its entirety because it was an actually really well written scene, but that's just what happens. So then Astrid gets like pissed at his son for rushing off. Makes sense. So in the next chapter shows Hiccup teaching his kids how to do like hand signals for dragons, but at this point they don't have dragons because they're too young. But that's like what Hiccup's really excited for. He's really excited for the day that they get dragons. So there was a cute part where we hear like Hiccup's inner monologue where he says, I think I wrote something wrong. It's like an inner monologue where it says that he like loves his kids. Like it talks about how much he adores and loves his kids, and he tells them that any chance that he gets because his father never told him when he was younger growing up. That is so deep. That is so freaking deep, guys. And that is like very sweet. Like Hiccup Father of the Year. So there was also another pretty cute scene where they show Stormfly and Toothless's point of view about having kids around, and there's really nothing much to say about this. They just kind of talk about how cute the little creatures are, but again, nothing really out of the ordinary or anything, nothing crazy to note, but it was a really cute scene. And so then we also see that Snoggletog is coming up, the Viking Christmas, and Hiccup is planning to like weave a Toothless plushie, and then Astrid is weaving a Stormfly plushie for Finn. My freaking heart, dude. So the next chapter shows a Snoggletog party, and we kind of get introduced to the character Eric. And if you guys never read the rest of the series, he becomes a really, really, really big and important character. But right now he is like 5 years old. He's pretty young. He's like the same age as the kids pretty much. But he's also just shown to be a really shy boy, mainly around Finn and Adriana as well. But, like I said, he's around their age. And then he was also shown just sitting by himself, being a pretty introverted little kid. So, yeah, obviously I'm not going to go into like spoilers about who he becomes later on. But again, he is a pretty big character later on. But it's kind of cute how they showed him in the beginning of the series, and they kind of show him being like when he's really young. I don't know why, that's really cute. So this all happened in the same chapter and the same scene. This is happening at the Snoggletog party, but Finn was being lifted up by Gobber, and then he held a mistletoe in front of his parents' head so that they would kiss. So I guess mistletoes are a thing in this universe. So yeah, the chapter just consists of some really cute holiday fluff, nothing dramatic or anything. But we also find out that Toughnut has a girlfriend. Her name is like Silva or something. I could be saying her name wrong, but she's like his girlfriend at this point. So yeah, there's a part where Adriana actually sings a Snoggletog carol, and they compliment her and say how amazing a voice she has. I don't know if they're just saying that because she's a toddler, but like, I kind of want to hear her voice. So yeah, but the happy holidays unfortunately does not last because the next morning, hell breaks loose. It does, so get ready. So if you guys have read the other books, then you would know that this night, like, that I'm going to talk about, changes the whole like fanfic series. So if you guys are really into this, like, I mean, I was gonna say like spoil ahead, but that's literally the whole point of this video. But yeah, so it's a scene that kind of does changes everything, to be honest. I'm coming for your brand, Hiccup.
This changes everything.
So they wake up on Snaggletock morning, and then they go into Adriana's room, and they see that she is indeed missing. And there was a letter on her bed saying, I wrote it down so I could quote it. Happy Snaggletock. Or is it? You want your little brat back? Come and get her. You know what I want. Hurry up. Offer ends real soon. And apparently underneath the note was like a drawing of a skrill. So that makes them assume that the berserkers are the ones who took Adriana. Things are heating up. So yeah, an emergency meeting was called into action, and then we even see kind of like the point of view of Snotmouth when he goes in, and he sees, because now that he has a kid, he kind of knows what like the fear of losing a kid is like. So he walks in, and then he sees like Hickshit in obvious distress because their daughter's freaking missing. Especially Hiccup, he's like falling apart, bro. But everyone else is like freaking tripping out. They're like, oh my god. And so Snothout says to Heather, he's like, we need to find them. We need to find her. Like, he's persistent on this. Which is pretty big for Snothout in this series because he's kind of a douche in this series. Oh god. So in the meeting, Stoic was like, okay, we'll head to Berserker Island while others keep their kids safe. Because as I said before, they believe that the Berserkers are the ones who took Adriana. So, as I mentioned too, Hiccup is also kind of like snapping at this point. He goes to Berserker Island and then literally like pins Dagger to the ground, thinking that he stole his daughter, but of course Dagger denies. But Hiccup doesn't take no for an answer. Like, Hiccup is freaking screaming at this dude. And then they find out that the writer of the note was left-handed. Like, they had to be really observant to figure that out. Like, I don't know, they saw the markings or something. And then, but Dagger is right-handed. And then they also found out that Berserker crest was, like, drawn wrong. So the Berserkers apparently were framed. So the Berserkers did not do this, apparently. Damn. Yikes. So they go back to Burke to check on Finn, their lasting child, to make sure that he's okay. And then Hiccup has like a legit panic attack. Like, I'm not just saying this to be funny. I'm not just saying he's like freaking out. But the way they described it made it sound like it was actually a panic attack. Like, he was kind of like, they say he like couldn't catch his breath. He was hyperventilating. Like, it's like the textbook definition of a panic attack. So if you want to read Hiccup having a panic attack, read this book. He has a lot of them, trust me. So yeah, so they go back to their house, and then they find another letter from Adriana's capture. And they see an hourglass and find out that the capture is a woman. Oh shoot. So Stoic takes a look at the note and finds out that the letters are coming from. The letters are coming from Stoic's sister. Don't click away yet, okay guys, it gets good. And of course everyone was like, you don't have a sister. But he says that he does, he just never told Hiccup about a sister to keep him safe. But at this point he doesn't really go into details about her, but he does later, so stay tuned about that. So they all can't think straight. They're freaking snapping at each other, and then Gabor was like, Hiccup, why don't you like step out of the room and take a breath? Because Hiccup is like so anxiety ridden that he's like making everyone else like panic. Like, it's not working out anymore. But then Astrid follows him because like she's comforting her husband. So at this point we only see like Hiccup panicking about the whole ordeal, but like we hardly ever see Astrid doing it or anything, but we finally get a glimpse of Astrid's like panic during this. And yes, as you can imagine, she is equally as panicked, but she is better at concealing it than he is. Again, pretty canon, I feel like. So we later see Stoic in the next chapter say to Gabor, if I tell Hiccup what my sister Trisha has done, then Hiccup would never be able to think straight. things are heating up. Things are... Yeah, I promise I'm not drunk, okay? I'm just in a really weird mood today. I promise you. So, that's that. It's also really hot. I'll get through this, I promise. So, as I mentioned before, the lady we saw last story, the creepy lady who was really weird and who was like caressing the kids, she is yeah, her name is Trista, and that is Stoic's sister that we didn't get to learn about in the last book, but she's the one who captured Adriana, and again, we'll find out the reasons later. So we finally found out the Stoic sister, this is where we find out the backstory, that find out the Stoic sister killed their younger brother out of jealousy of Stoic being the golden child. But then we find out that never happened. In fact, Stoic was the one who killed their younger brother. And then he framed Trista, which makes Trista go insane. So that's, yeah, that's the backstory. Like, bruh. Like, okay. And so, as you can imagine, Hiccup freaking snapped. And I mean snapped. Like, broken beyond belief, dude. Like, if you think he snapped in the first book, he's snapping now. Like, it's uncanny. Like, I need to take a break after reading this chapter. He is, like, going berserk. Like, he needs to join the Berserkers because he belongs there at this point because he is crazy. He goes crazy. But again, I guess you can't blame him, but it's like, everyone had to leave. Like, he was freaking out so much that everyone just left. Like, they walked out. Like, I don't know. Yikes. It's like the Berserkers called. They freaking want their sanity back. So this chapter was honestly really sad. It was really sad. Because late at night, they go into Adriana's room for the first time since she got kidnapped. And then Hiccup nailed her window closed in case she ever was found. And then Astrid also cleans up her room a bit. So it's really sad. Something about this chapter is really depressing. I mean, obviously it's supposed to be depressing, but like, I don't know, it just made me like uncomfortably depressed, if that makes any sense. Like, I was like, I hate reading this. Like, it was just so sad. Like, I had to stop reading it. So the next morning, they find Adriana's skirt that's filled with blood. So yeah, at this point, Hickshire almost lost hope at this point. And yes, that skirt was planted there by Trista. I don't know how she's planting stuff and no one finds her. I really don't know how that happens, but apparently that's what's happening in this story. But then they do find a note saying that she is indeed alive. And this is the final straw. Like, they are going to be searching until the end of the world if possible. So this is also just like, I think this is the first time they mention this really, but like, Hiccup like only calls Adriana 80. I mean, he will call her Adriana if she's like in trouble, but he's like the only one to nickname her 80. But like, it's not important, but it's mentioned here, basically. Like, I don't know, it's just mentioned because Fishlegs accidentally called her 80, and then Astrid was like, you have to call her Anna. Only Hiccup calls her 80. And then, you know, Fishleg apologized, and then Astrid's like, it's fine, just don't do it in front of him. What does that mean? Like, how upset is it gonna get if you accidentally call the daughter her wrong nickname? That's really weird. So yeah, Hiccup was kind of, as everything went on, Hiccup kind of was being an ass trying to figure out where Adriana is, but like, obviously you can't really blame the guy. So finally Trista left a note saying to come to a certain location, but on foot. But with dragons. I don't really get that part. So there was a really sad moment where they travel up a hill and then they stop to make camp at a cave for the rest of the night. And then Hiccup and Astrid hope and pray that she's safe and that she's not dead. Like, please. So Hiccup even says he's like scared to see her tomorrow because she might be alive now, but he might have to watch her die tomorrow. This book is so dark. It's so dark, guys. Why did I read this at 3 in the morning? I don't know. So the next morning, they travel up the hill, and then they do see Adriana, who looked a freaking wreck. Like, they say that she is freaking wrecked out. Her hair is messy. Her clothes are ripped. She's skinnier. She's like, even though it's been like, I think only like 3 days since she's been missing, but she is like a wreck, guys. Like, it's bad. They also say that her face have like scratches on it. That's really sad. And she also looks terrified to boot. So they confront Trista, and obviously, just like the last one, I won't go into like full details because it is a pretty long and explicit scene. But of course, if you guys really want to watch it or read this chapter, then I obviously, of course, advise you to read this chapter because it is very much worth the read. So when Stoic was confronting Trista, they got him to admit, as I mentioned before, I kind of spoiled this before, so I'm sorry that like that I kind of said this before, because I forgot that he didn't admit to this until this chapter, so I'm sorry. But then Trista gets Stoic to admit that he was the one who actually ended up killing his brother, their brother. And I mentioned that before, but I forgot that this is actually the scene where he admits to that, so yikes. Apparently he accidentally threw an axe. I think it was an axe. He threw an axe at his newborn brother's head. This book is getting so dark by the moment. I did not sign up for that. Oh god. So you think that it'll be happy now that Adriana is reconnected with her parents, but no. The damage has already been done. Adriana was freaking terrified and traumatized by what Trista has done to her. She couldn't even be touched by her parents. Like, she freaked out when her parents would come into view. Ew. So it was never actually said what was what happened to her. It's not even said until like many books later. Like, not chapters, I mean books. Like, it's not explained until like 3 books later what happened to her. That's why I said that her getting kidnapped was so important to the whole story, because it's mentioned, like, again, up until the last book pretty much. It's mentioned so much. It's bad. So the only person who trusts her, the only person that she trusts right now is Fishlegs, because he caught her when she was falling, which is so devastating. Like, I'm gonna start crying again. This is really embarrassing. So days went on, and then Trista was defeated and then actually got the freaking death penalty. She got freaking executed for what she did. But as I mentioned before, it's not over yet, because Adriana is still freaking traumatized and does not want to be with her parents. Even though, as you guys remember, before she got kidnapped, she was a complete goody two-shoes and a complete daddy's girl. Like, a complete daddy's girl. But now she can't even like look at him without freaking out. It's really depressing. And lots of the chapters are really sad. So Hiccup definitely beats himself up about this, and he goes into this weird catatonic state, which is kind of creepy. Like, he basically shuts down, and this makes me feel really bad for freaking Astrid, because she has to be the one picking up the pieces while she is probably equally as devastated. So yikes. I do feel kind of bad for her. My sympathy is for her. So one day we see Adriana is crying, and then Hiccup, she's in the healer because she has those injuries, and then Hiccup goes in despite what everyone says, and yeah, she is still very much scared of him, and he finally breaks down and lets out all of his pent up feelings. But one thing you have to know about Adriana is, like I mentioned before, she is definitely an empath. That's a very important part of her character. That's a very popular trait with her, is that she is definitely an empath. She feels emotions very heavily, and people thought that was washed away when she got kidnapped, but apparently seeing her father cry for probably like the first time she's ever seen her father cry, she hates it. She hates seeing people cry. So that kind of broke her out of her shell basically, and she like wiped her father's tears, and basically it kind of broke their boundaries. And like I said before, this scene was so sad. It was so sad. It's embarrassing. I cried over How to Dragon fanfic, but I did. I'm not gonna lie. And so yeah, this was chapter 16 in case you are curious. So the rest of the story basically deals with like Adriana's mental recovery. Like, she panics when her dad isn't around for like a second, making her super, super clingy. Now that she kind of broke the boundary, she is a very clingy person, and she should never be that way. She should be really independent, but now she is very clingy. So there's a moment where Hickstrid kind of gets a little bit steamy once again, but it's pretty wholesome, I won't lie. It's not an important part, but it's like obviously towards the end. That's this theme with lots of these books, is that there's always like kind of like Hickstrid fluff slash like steaminess at the end to kind of celebrate the ending of what happened. So that's kind of what this is. They're just randomly getting hot and heavy. So we also see Astra's point of view during this whole thing, and how she was like a wreck, but then didn't bother crying because it won't resolve anything. Pretty badass. So again, the rest of this chapters or the rest of the book doesn't really matter because it's more just like a fluff after all this drama that was happening in this book. But I freaking love Finn because he's that type of kid who likes to like capture insects and then like release it, which is really cute because we see that in the next book too. He's like the kind of kid who loves to just grab animals. That's why he put a freaking frog in his mouth. Like, something about that is so freaking cute. And then just ends with everyone just like laughing and being all cute and so that is pretty much the official ending of this fanfic. And yes, that was a pretty deep discussion. So obviously I left out lots of parts because I'm not gonna explain every single thing in its entirety because it's like so obviously I'm not gonna do that because that's the whole reason why I make these, so you guys could also read them on your own if you want to. And hey, if I ever make my own fanfic, this is how I'm gonna be sponsoring it. I'm gonna be telling you guys about it. So this isn't canon, but there was actually a bonus chapter that was posted by the same creator. It's an alternate universe if Adriana died, and oh my god, it was so sad. Like, oh my god, it's so sad. It's called Mine. It's it's part of the same book. Like, it's like if you continue scrolling, it's there. But oh my god, it is so sad, guys. Like, I read that at 3 in the morning, and I was crying by the end of it. It was so sad. So if you guys want me to do more of these videos, let me know. If there's a specific video or specific fanfic you want me to read, let me know. Like this video if you want me to do, or comment, like or comment, if you want me to do the third book in this series, because again, I read them, so might as well. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Happy Friday, and I guess I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.